Hey everybody, welcome back to the Spin Rack. I'm here with my boys PD and Cal. Say what's up, gents.
What's going on?
Yo, we ready to rock?
Hey, we ready to fight about this right now. The question is, was X-Men 97 any good? So I'm starting off with our boy PD. PD, look, we have seen episode number one, we've seen episode number two, and if this is anything to do, and hey guys, there's gonna be spoilers here. We already discussed this. You have seen tons of reviews about this. We're going straight to the jugular right now.
Putting it
They
on
promised
me.
us the Goblin Queen storyline, and I don't know what the hell I'm getting right now. But episode one starts off, and it's like mad pedestrian till the very end. The question: does it follows in the original X-Men? Yes, it does. It literally picks up from where it left off. But I don't know. So I'm gonna give it to PD so I can calm myself down and go through this. As an adult.
Well, it starts off in a sense where we see the X-Men, and I think it's different. They're not playing up that Xavier's in space. They're playing up that Xavier is dead and possibly killed by Peter Glyrek, right? So they're just kind of like everyone knows somehow they know that Professor Xavier, Charles Xavier, was a mutant and that sort of thing. So, but if you see the last episodes, a lot of that went into the series that we saw in the films. But ultimately, there's a little bit of difference. But and Jean is pregnant, and Cyclops is thinking about exiting. So it's kind of playing in the period that I was struggling the most with the X-Men, from like 168 to almost 274. There's so much stuff that's in these from the comic books. Storm has a mohawk in this thing already, and ultimately the first thing is dealing with Scott's idea of possibly leaving, but of course they have to fight the Sentinels and stuff like that. So they have a big brawl with the Sentinels. I'm more for the tougher Sentinels, where one Sentinel can take on the entire X-Men team, but a lot of people like seeing the X-Men kind of knock over Sentinels. Like, they're kind of bumbling. They have their moments, but most of the time you see them. Cyclops is a bit cooler in this series. A lot of people are taking to him because he's doing some cool stuff. Some stuff that's kind of wacky that was in episode 2, but we have Wolverine still complaining about him all the time, but ultimately they're trying to figure out things without Charles Xavier, right? And this is what Chris Claremont wanted to do. This is why Cyclops and Professor X left, because he said it. He felt that Magneto and Storm and the rest of the X-Men can make mistakes. Professor Xavier and Cyclops, these guys are less so. And he kind of looked at the X-Men as a tour of duty, where they would get new teammates and stuff like that. So people would come in and out. So when we get to the second episode, this is where a lot of stuff happened, because Magneto has gotten the last will and testament. It's kind of similar to X-Men 200, because they want to bring Magneto to trial, and they kind of force fit a lot of stuff that's in the comic books. Storm, the idea is someone trying to take out Magneto's power, and it happens to somebody else, but that's the storyline that's in the comic books also. So there's a lot of bits in here. Cyclops on the edge of leaving, and then at the end we have a big surprise happen. Another redhead walks to the door and says, "I'm looking." She says specifically, "I'm looking for the X-Men," or something like that. She doesn't call out to Scott. So this is when Mars, I think, is feeling kind of bothered with, because it doesn't seem like Madeline Pryor is going to have the kid, because Jean is having a kid, but it's a cartoon. The X-Men are in a different place, so they're kind of force fitting these storylines to get some of the stuff they want. So I had to say good. I enjoyed the X-Men cartoon when I first started watching it, and then I had to kind of leave it alone and let them go the way they wanted to go. And then looking at the end of the series, a lot of stuff you see in Logan and the Apocalypse storyline, a lot of that stuff comes from the cartoon. So my critiques on the X-Men over the year, the movies, I didn't know what the source material was. So it's interesting to see that they're not doing that stuff here, but it's exciting. It's still kind of and for me, because it's the tougher period for me. But it seems like there's a buzz and people are going, and they got Sunspot in there, and it's the light-skinned Sunspot. I'm the wrong person to be complaining about the light-skinned Sunspot, but I'm complaining about Why did they make him a light-skinned sunspot? I'm still upset they did it in the movie, and I understand so the problem is I didn't know in the comic books they made him light-skinned, and I'm not with it.
Yeah, I mean, in recent years they've changed up like Sunspot, but we're not talking about that.
I'm talking about that. I'm not with it.
It's a whole nother issue. We're talking about, dude.
What's your issue?
First of all, the whole hateration that they're showing to my boy Cyclops, number one, but I love the use of his I guess.
Does it make sense?
Huh?
Does it make sense to fall out of the sky and use his eye beams to land?
Yes, it does.
No,
it does not.
I think it's fantastic.
Thank you.
No, it doesn't. That's literally that's something like some fan fiction I would have written when I was 12 or 13. Like, oh, use his eye beam. He would snap his neck. Get out of it. No.
Well, first of all, they're saying that the power from Cyclops is coming from another dimension that he's harnessing.
That's some handbook nonsense. That's some Marvel handbook nonsense.
Marvel Universe handbook.
Don't let me break this bottle on you guys right now. Okay, don't let me break it right now. All right, don't let me break it. All right.
What else didn't you like, Mars?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just don't like short Wolverine getting it in and
See, that's always been Marvel's. Marvel's always had a problem with that, where they try to explain the character's powers and then they get themselves into a box because the explanation either doesn't make a lot of sense or the explanation puts the character at a disadvantage. You're like, oh, well, if this is where your powers come from, then I can do this to circumvent them and shut them down, and that's how I'm going to beat you, and then they'll kill you. So they've always had an issue. They've really had a problem with that, even with something like the Hulk, and they're like, well, Bruce Banner, when he changes to the Hulk, he's able to pack on like all this extra muscle and everything. And we don't know how. It might be extra dimensional. Kids don't need to know all that. We just need to really know how strong this dude is. And all the other stuff, just leave it. DC was better with that. They were like, oh, we don't know how strong this dude is. He's really tough and he's this, that, and the other. It was like very, very general. Marvel tried to be specific with the height, the weight, and how much the character can lift. But then you would have somebody like Daredevil, and they would say his maximum bench press is 450 pounds, and he's curling. He's literally curling 300. So it's like, obviously his bench press is going to be a lot more. So, that type of stuff right over there, the extra dimensional thing, totally bad. However, it is nice to see a show, and I wasn't going to tune into this show, but I got a recommendation from Professor VA. Shout out. Hope my boy is good. He said it was good. He really liked it. So I was like, okay, got to take a pass at it. And he's right. I do like the treatment of Cyclops. There was this really bad narrative that went after Cyc, and I'm not an X-Men reader, per se. Okay, I know the major storylines. I'll come in for certain things, but I know that Cyclops is a cool character, and for some reason these guys just decided, oh no, he's going to become the biggest Applejack, that we can make him. He's Asset. He's the president of Asset City. First car, first seat when it comes to it on the train to the city. So I'm glad to see them finally showing him some respect, especially since in the films they took his character and truncated him into, he was just an X-Men as opposed to the leader of the X-Men, and that was really his big significant role. That's almost like taking Nightwing or Robin on the Teen Titans. And without the leadership role, Nightwing is pretty much out of water because everybody else has superpowers. So yeah. I'm glad that they restored that to Cyclops, because it really should have never happened in the first place. But these are people who seem to also be looking at the stories and saying, okay, what are these characters? What's the role? How do these guys fit in? What works best? And then they're, okay, we're not going to reinvent the wheel, and we're not going to make Cyclops a punching bag for Wolverine, so Wolverine can look cooler. Wolverine looks cool without any help from us, but we have to do something with this character because he's here, and he's here for a reason. And he's been around for a long time, too, and it's not because people thought he was an ass.
Well, I would like to tie in on that. The one other thing that I had issue with is that Professor Xavier is gone, and you have to remember that at some point, even in the first issue of the X-Men, Professor Xavier is teaching them what to do, and then he sends them out to take on Magneto. And at that point, Cyclops isn't even the field leader yet. And he comes to the army, and they say, Magneto's running everything, and Cyclops is like, all right, just give us 15 minutes and we'll take care of this. They never met Magneto. And then it's like, all right, we can't do anything, so let you do it. It's like, wow, 14 minutes, you guys are pretty good. So if you think about it like that, he'd already taken the leadership, And then later when he gets picked, he doesn't think he's the guy. He's like, hey, Beast and Angel, like Angel's more aggressive, and Beast is smart. And it's like, no, but you
Cyclops.
have huh?
And Cyclops.
No, Cyclops became the leader. He said, Xavier said, you had the quality of leadership. And then he took it on. He still was, kind of, to himself, kind of self-depreciating because he's struggling with having his eye beams on all the time. That's why he's always grim and struggles with it. But at the same time, when you get to, there's a long period where Professor X dies, X-Men separate, they come back together, and they have no problem. The originals had no problem with the leadership, right? Then the new X-Men come. They have a ton of problems because they want to get that arguments that happen in the Marvel Universe happening. But Cyclops leads them without Professor Xavier. He's running things. They're running across the country. They think Xavier thinks the X-Men are dead. And when they finally come back together, Xavier has them in the danger room, and Cyclops is like, Professor, it's not going to work. You can't give these adults the merits. And he's like, no, I shouldn't have given this to you. I've actually left. It's like I should be reaching them, but I know these guys are individual. You can't teach them the same way you taught us. And then Xavier comes to realize that that Cyclops was right. He said, hey, I kind of lost my team to this guy that was a good leader. So if we lose Professor, and that's what I think, which would have knocked out X Factor altogether if they just kept Cyclops in the book, because that's what he does best. And at the same time, Storm and Cyclops would work together. When Banshee was gone, Cyclops would turn to Storm and they were like co-captains. And that's Cyclops as a leader saying, hey, Storm, come in the room. Let's go talk. We got Beast here. Me and you will work this out. And then Cyclops, Colossus, Nightcrawler, and Wolverine are in the danger room saying, oh, Cyclops is thinking, Colossus is thinking, hey, I know we're not the brains, but come on. But if you also had to look at Wolverine was a punching bag for the first couple of years, but that did not stop him from being cool. Like he gets beat and tossed around by Iron Fist. And at the end of the issue, it's an Iron Fist issue. Colossus has Iron Fist trapped, and Wolverine comes to his face, and he said, wait, let's just talk. Let's talk it out. And Wolverine's like, Wolverine doesn't talk. He puts his claws up to his face. So he acts and puts his claws right in his face. Like, that's cool. You don't need him to have to beat up everybody to be cool. And that's the thing that they initially, would do. But then later on, they're like, hey, he needs to be tougher. So Dr. Doom hits him with power, and Wolverine gets back up. I'm coming at you, Doom. And it's like, no, he would burn him to a crisp. And then Wolverine's like, well, another fine mess I got myself into. But ultimately, they did at least gave you some things for Cyclops. I didn't watch enough to know how much they did with Storm in the series. Did they do enough things with Storm? It felt like she was kind of a stock character.
But she was.
It was. And they always undercut her.
So they're trying to do some stuff with her this time, having her deal with obviously what she dealt with in the comic books, losing her power. But if you don't have any character to fall back on, like Chris Claremont already gave her all the punk stuff. And I like to point out, if you remember, the punk outfit was her superhero outfit. It was the outfit that she would go to weddings in. She went to 2 weddings in that outfit. It was her hangout attire. It's not until I think it was John Romita Jr. started putting her in some different outfits. But when she shows up in, I think it's 172 in that outfit, she's in that outfit for the next 6 issues, and in Secret Wars. So it's just like she's in that outfit for the longest. it's like the punk outfit. People argue no, she didn't. She changed her costume. She's just expressing herself. It's everywhere. She doesn't put on any other costume than that one. So, but we'll see how this goes if they give her more to do, because obviously, and then when I said the last point was what's that thing? I said from X-Men 172, which is a Jim Lee issue, and in the Jim Lee issue, Jim Lee introduced that there's a connection between Magneto and Rogue, right? So we always know that Remy and Rogue had some sort of connection, but Jim Lee, I guess, because I don't know why he threw it in there, but that's been a mainstay. It was in the Age of Apocalypse where they played it out a little more. But the difference in age in these characters is really extreme because either Rogue is between 40 and 17. People like to say she's 17. I would say she's probably in her 20s. But when she was originally introduced, she was kind of looking like she was like 40. And then they said she was a teen, but she was never put into the New Mutants. But she has this connection with Magneto. Magneto, even though he has the body of a 20-year-old, he's like 60. So, um, yeah,
Yeah,
so
but I
they're
mean,
playing that out.
we digress big time, but Rogue is definitely chooses Magneto over Gambit, right? And so that becomes like you said, in the Age of Apocalypse, that plays out. But I thought that was also was that is that a legitimate storyline? Because they have her as
She
a
connects
cousin.
with Joseph too. She connects with Joseph
They get married. You know what I'm trying to say?
in Age of Apocalypse.
Yeah,
So they're playing that out.
I'm not sure. I'm just saying. Is it look? So,
They're touchy feeling. It's like, hey, we're touching and we're hugging.
but what I really want to bring up here, and Cal, you can jump in and back me up as always, is that what they're really doing to me, if you ask me, is that they are saying, hey, this Age of Krakoa stuff we're putting to the side, and we're going to go back to like the original X-Men stuff, you know. And in the comic books, those are also starting to revert backwards, also too. Whereas like the Age of Apocalypse is, I think they're going to redo a new series of Age of Apocalypse coming up. Um, so this is pretty interesting. I don't know why, you know.
Yeah, maybe they will do an Age of Apocalypse.
So that
I don't know. The Krakoa stuff I thought was okay, but at the end of the day, it's very defeating because what they were saying is that, hey, Xavier's dream, it's never going to happen. So I'm like, so what am I reading this book for? What am I reading this book for? That was a long-term goal. That was like the Martin Luther King dream, and you're pretty much saying, nah, it's never going to happen. So we need to come over here, but the logical conclusion of that argument is that I don't need to read this book because you guys are always going to be hunted, hated, and feared. You're going to have to fight not only against your own people because you got the evil mutants that you're trying to corral, but you're also, going to have to protect those people, okay, from the rest of the world. So this is just a futile, endeavor at the end of the day if you take it to its logical conclusion. So I'm happy that they said, you know what, maybe not, or maybe we look at that as a Days of Future Past storyline where this was like, hey, that was like a future that could have happened, but thankfully we stopped it. Yeah, we stopped it, and so we don't have to go down that route. So I just don't think they're the smart thing. Where look, I'll give Chris Claremont, I'll give him the gears, but this is the guy whose name is attached to the majority of X-Men stories that people are familiar with. And so when it's time to do the show, they probably looked at the stuff that went on from the previous show. They have to have a story Bible, and they're looking at the story like, well, most of this stuff is attached to Claremont. Let's see what this guy wrote. And it's like, okay, and then they're probably like, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff to work with here. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. The stuff over here, that's going on right now doesn't necessarily have as much resonance as this because people are still talking about it. So let's use this. We can definitely expand on it in terms of the format that we have, using animation. But it was nice to see some writers actually humble themselves for a change instead of, no, I want to do my own thing. I got my own story. And then when they create something, it's so discordant from any of the history that's happened before that when you're watching it, you're like, I think the worst thing is to look at a show and say, no, Wolverine would never do that. Wolverine, we don't say that about real people. We don't say
right.
that, oh, no, this guy would never do that. And we look at a show like, no, he would never do that. That shows just how badly these people have been able to enact this character based on the framework that's been left for them. So I'm glad that they were humble enough to say, look, we don't need to do that. We've got plenty to work with right here. At least to start, we got plenty to work with. We don't need to come over here and decide that we know better than what's worked and was very, very successful that came before. We're adding to that tapestry, not creating our own.
Yeah.
Well, it is what it is, bro. So I mean, since we're doing this, just to tell you, there is a Marvel is redoing, is publishing. I mean, something in Bleeding Cool. Marvel will be publishing new X-Men under a different title. They'll still be publishing the previously new X-Men, but it's going to be under a different title. And it's the Age of Apocalypse related. It says.
And you're
Should have
interested
started
in
at
that?
95 from Bleeding Cool.
You're interested in that?
So my point
Yep.
is that I think they're getting away from Krakoa, and once again, Cal backed me up on this. I know you are Krakoan, PD, but I'm
I
sorry.
am definitely not a Krakoan. They're already doing a new launch of the X-Men.
Yes.
So they have a whole bunch of set of teams. So to do another Age of Apocalypse is kind of like, oh yeah, Brevoort. So the honor answer here is Led Jordan.
So X-Men news. Okay.
I'm saying they already put a whole new set of teams. We saw it, and I mean, there's an ad for it, but now they're doing something else besides that. It's kind of weird, but hey, whatever they can do to try to keep sales going.
Okay. All right. So hey, anything else, guys?
That's it. You're the host, right?
Yeah, I know I'm the host. I'm saying, yeah. Anything else you guys want to talk about this? You good with this, Cal? You good with this, Pete?
Hey,
Yes.
not a bit. Check it out. You may like it.
Yeah. So I'm saying, hey, once again, we're giving it 3 Magnetos.
Wow.
That's one.
I thought you said you didn't like it.
What?
I thought you said they had a problem with the. You saying you're okay with this new X-Men?
I'm okay where we're starting off right now. It was a teaser just to throw people in there and say, hey, I'm having problems. But it's just the way it ended the episode, the end of episode 2.
This guy.
So 1 Magneto for PD, 1 Magneto for Mars, and of course Cal picks it up with 1 Magneto. So altogether, that's a 100% rating. We are interested in this. So
You kind of
watch it.
wishy-washy. You probably go to the Hellfire Gala.
Yes, I like the Hellfire guy. It was a big thing with Krakoa when it ended.
Good Lord. All right.
All right, Spinnerack.
Out.